Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Two Geeks and One Noob, where we gather friends of similar interests and maybe not so similar to discuss, joke, learn more about, and generally have fun with geek culture. So this week we have an interesting topic that I myself am not too versed in, but my two friends, Caleb and David, are very well versed in. So I will let them take the helm. Caleb, David.
Hi, I'm David. I'm a weeb.
Well, I guess there's your hint for the topic for this week. I'm Caleb. I too am a weeb. This week we decided we're going to talk about anime, and this is something that David and I are pretty familiar with, and going based off of stuff that we grew up watching and have attempted to introduce Dan to varying effects of success.
Well put. Very well put.
Specifically, what we're wanting to look at and discuss is going to be anime that we grew up with and seeing some of the impact that it's had on modern anime, as well as some other things and different influences that they've pulled from to make those anime.
Yep.
Yeah, because I've even seen some sort of anime culture in even some of the cartoons that we've seen, like that we've discussed before, is like Spider-Man and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and just the breadth of what genres are covered by anime now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting to see how it's kind of branched out and how some of those genres have now come into vogue again in more American pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
In part because of and through, and actually kind of get us into the topic. I mean, Ghost in the Shell came out what? 90. No, that was 2000s.
Something like that. Yeah, I know that one was one of the earlier ones, and that did help.
No, 98. The movie came out in 95. Movie came out in 95. Yep.
There we go. Yeah, so like even looking at different things, it's pretty cool to see not only what anime has inspired, but also what has taken inspiration from anime.
Mm-hmm.
Or what anime has taken inspiration from, rather. Like, for example, with one of my personal favorites of a more modern anime in My Hero Academia, the main character is very heavily modeled after Spider-Man with his fighting style and some of the techniques and stuff that he learns as he goes through. So it's pretty cool to see not only what impact anime has had on modern entertainment, but what modern entertainment has had on anime as well.
Yeah. It's really cool. It's kind of this, not quite quid pro quo, but more of a you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Which I guess that is kind of the definition of quid pro quo. But it's just this idea of just feeding off of each other as far as, okay, recognizing the strengths in one and then adding it into the other. So, and you can go even further into the production of anime. Is I mean, that in and of itself was kind of a groundbreaking thing at the time.
Yeah, especially if we look at some of the really popular anime from the 90s and early 2000s, we're seeing some of those still going on to this day.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing, like, I think One Piece is up to like what, almost 1,000 episodes now. Naruto went on for 500 episodes before it moved on to the next chapter being Boruto, and then Dragon Ball Z took a long break, and now it's come back with Dragon Ball Super and other movies, and seeing like those animated movies breaking records in theaters at this point.
And even getting away from more of the shonen style where it's that ongoing storyline.
Yeah. You
also have stuff like Evangelion.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, obviously, part of that as well. Gundam. Trying to think of a couple others.
Well, Gundam's been an interesting one because that one's technically been going on since the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And there's so many different story arcs and timelines and stuff that none of which directly connect to each other, but they're all technically within the same universe, even if there's like they don't reference any of the other situations, or it could technically be going at like the same time frame, just different timelines. And like there's so much there for Gundam that it's crazy to see how long that one's been going.
Yeah. So I actually have my first question. Speaking of Gundam, is it true or is it just my imagination that Transformers kind of came from Gundam, or is it other way around, or because they're very similar style robots, and I'm just curious if one influenced the other, or
So they came up around the same time initially,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken, where it's technically a subgenre of mecha anime,
Right.
called Real Robot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just the more realistic style instead of the more bombastic. Ha ha ha. In fact, Gigantor was the other style of that, which was actually one of the earlier imported animes.
Mhm.
But
Based on a quick Google search, Gundam started in the 70s and Transformers started in 84.
Okay.
And so I don't know if Transformers was directly brought from Gundam, but there probably was at least some inspiration there just looking at that mecha fight style. And
Yeah.
but yeah, so Gundam did start first and then Transformers was a little bit later.
Okay.
my mistake. Yep.
Cool.
So Gundam is an interesting one for me personally. That's one that I've always loved, and I like to go back and watch a lot of the older ones. I grew up watching Gundam Wing, and that one was like really one of that. Gundam Wing and Dragon Ball Z were kind of the ones that got me started on my anime love.
Don't mind my dog. Sorry.
The borking boofer out there again. Yeah, the Gundam Wing and Dragon Ball Z were the ones that really got me started with my love of anime, and that's where most of it started. And I was seeing like different things that those have kind of inspired since then, and just seeing how much they've both grown over the years as well is pretty impressive. Like for example, Gundam Wing, or really just Gundam in general, had always been an older style show where they did a lot of the anime, like the hand drawn animations and sequences. And so you'd see, especially Gundam Wing and anything prior to that, you'd see a lot of the same action sequences and random parts. And it's like, okay, well, they're reusing a previous drawing either due to budgetary restraints or whatever. And so you'll see some of those similar things coming back and forth. And then watching the most recent Gundam series and Iron Blood Orphans and seeing Funimation's just like, no, this is a popular series. Everyone loves this. We want to make our own Gundam storyline that is unique to us, that we're the only ones that have touched.
Yeah.
Unique to America itself, or unique to the company?
Unique to the company.
Okay.
Yeah, because up to that point, it had always been Bandai that had been doing a lot of that, and they just kind of contracted out to various voice acting agencies for the characters, and then Funimation got the opportunity to do their own unique storyline and touch and everything with that. So that was kind of the first time that Funimation, which is really like the biggest voice company in America as far as anime is concerned, really got their hands on it. It's like, no, this is our project. This is our baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was gonna say I did recognize that name Bandai because I remember like that
Power
quick
Rangers.
little the quick little theme song for it. It was just Bandai.
Yeah.
Bandai is kind of like the Disney of anime. They've got their
really?
hands
They're
on
up
like
there with
all
it,
of the
yeah.
pies.
Them or
Nice.
Studio Madhouse.
Yeah, Studio Madhouse, I don't think quite to the extent of Bandai, because Bandai also has a lot of the rights for the video games and board games and figures.
They
and stuff
do,
like that.
and that's partly because Bandai is such it's a much wider company than just animation. And in that regard, yes, they're more like Disney. As far as renown, that honor's got to go to a different company. Got to go to Ghibli.
Yeah. Studio Ghibli is like the precedent setter. If you can manage to match or beat a Studio Ghibli movie in theaters or even on DVD Blu-ray sales, then you've done something special.
Yeah.
Like everyone really holds it up to the standards of just like Ghibli is the cream of the crop. That is the top of the mountain.
Yeah. And I mean, Studio Ghibli is kind of, it's to the point where with a lot of their properties where, let's say, I'm sure you would recognize Totoro, the kind of big raccoon looking thing. They never really explain what he is. They kind of do. They hint like, no, he's a tree spirit. He's essentially the anime version of the Lorax.
Okay. In what show or
My Neighbor Totoro?
okay. All right.
Ghibli
that
is
makes
unique in that they don't have shows per se. All of Studio Ghibli stuff is movies.
Okay.
And so
Not all. Two
Not
properties. Well,
Two
technically, it's one
yeah.
property with two installments.
Yeah. But like the majority of the Ghibli product is movie related. And those are so popular within the anime community. They're still getting put out in random releases in theaters to this day.
Mhm.
And that's just a testament to how popular those are and the fact that it's like theaters like, oh no, we know we're going to make money on this. That was like one of the few movies that some of the theaters had showing during the lockdown situation, like after this theater started to open back up, because they were like, this is a safe bet. We know people will come in to watch this.
Yeah.
Yep.
The diehard fans that are
Oh yeah.
not necessarily quarantined.
Well, there are some people that are like anime fans and they only watch Ghibli.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But then there's HBO Max for that now because
It's true.
their partnership with Warner Brothers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And technically, at one point, Studio Ghibli movies were Disney property as well.
Mhm.
So technically, Studio Ghibli movies are also Disney movies.
Which kind of goes back into that original topic, though, of that give and take of showing off what was good about one and implementing it in the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
In fact, that also led to some of the kind of confusing releases. Is a few very well-known properties were re-released with new voice actors.
Mhm.
And it's the exact same storyline, the exact same lines delivered in potentially more convincing ways. Sometimes no. But one thing I will say for the re-releases on a lot of titles, it's allowing a lot of younger actors to voice actors to get into that industry. So for example, the re-release of Totoro actually is Dakota Fanning and her sister
Oh wow.
are the two main voice actors.
Elle Fanning.
Thank you, Elle. Yeah. So yeah, it was that kind of blew me away whenever I was watching through. And I was like, hang on, that voice. Oh my gosh, it's the kid from Man on Fire. Oh.
Or Uptown Girls, as I would know her from.
Yeah, I kind of said that's where my mind went.
That's fair. Another one that I grew up with that I don't know if it's technically considered anime because it was definitely not as well known, at least, that it was inspired heavily by Gundam was Zoids. And I don't know if you saw
I've
that.
heard
It was
about
another
those.
mech fighting show, but instead of it being like human-shaped robots, they were animal-shaped robots. And they're all like basically themed off of dinosaurs and a few other animals like gorillas, for example. But majority of them were some sort of like dinosaur variation.
Yeah.
And that one like definitely doesn't get the love it deserves in my opinion because it was such a good story and like all of the Zoids had such cool designs. Like for example, the main Zoid was Liger Zero and it was a white lion tiger liger.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so it was just this really big, fast, powerful creature. But that one was really unique because it had the ability to swap out its armor. So it just had like the white form was its base form. Then it had a green form that was just like really heavy armor and all the big weapons. Like when it went into the green form, it wasn't going to move much, but it was going to hit something hard from a distance. And then there was like the orange armor that was like gave it really super fast speed and like gained some like slashing weapons and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And a few other variations of that same that same Zoid. But it's like just seeing like the way that they kind of took that inspiration from the Gundam and they went really heavy because Gundam had always been popular with one of two storylines. Gundam was either a war in space over colonizing other planets and like the colonies not feeling like they're getting the respect they deserve from the governments, or a tournament fighting arc.
Mm-hmm.
And Zoids took heavily from that tournament fighting arc in that they had this big tournament and that was the entire show. Was was fighting through the various rounds of the tournament to see who was going to come out on top.
Yeah. So the Zoids, was it actually like living robots or were they
Most of
people
them,
in them?
No, the people were in them controlling them. So it's just like Gundams in that there was always a pilot.
Okay.
Now, Liger Zero and one other one called Shadow Fox were living beings in that they chose their pilot. They were very picky and like and people that had attempted to pilot them up to that point had such a heavy strain on their brain, almost like Pacific Rim style, if you will, that they weren't able to even pilot, let alone control. And so like those two kind of had their own unique stories and like they were really cool designs and they had that like, it was like, okay, are these pilots actually going to be good enough to control these Zoids? Like, are they going to work together? What's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But most of them were just robots that kind of did their own, that were just being piloted by a good pilot.
Cool. Yeah, so sounds kind of like the Zoids were very much the piloted version of Beast Wars from Transformers.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. And there was the only similarity, well, I guess there was a few similarities in like T-Rex and Gorilla between Zoids and Beast Wars.
Yeah.
But there wasn't too many similar because again, majority of the Zoids were modeled after dinosaurs, with the exception of like the gorillas, the fox, and like one or two others. But vast majority of them were dinosaurs. And Beast Wars like kind of had a mix and match of that, which Beast Wars is another one I don't feel gets the love it deserves, because that was a fantastic show.
I was gonna say,
that's the one that got me my start in it. It was Beast Wars, and then followed shortly thereafter by Trigun.
And Trigun's such a classic, and just the pacifist marksman, like,
yeah,
what kind of concept is that when you first think about it? Then you're watching it, it's like, this is great. This is so much fun to see a pacifist marksman. It's just like, I'm going to see how much I can annoy you to win this fight. I'm not going to actually hurt you, but you're going to be really salty when this is over.
Oh yeah, like in some ways you kind of wonder if he was inspired by the original design for Deadpool or similar characters.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
For me, like the big one for me growing up was always Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
And it's like I've got multiple tattoos of Dragon Ball Z. That is the love I have for this show. And seeing like the different
I
shows
still think you got that one tattoo on the wrong side of your leg.
That's fair. That's probably fair. But it is what it is now. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, for those who clearly are not seeing, Caleb has a Shinron on his thigh.
No, it's on my calf.
Or on your calf. You're right. I'm sorry.
So it's a Caffron?
Yeah, Caffron.
Which I think is a style of pan. Like cooking pan.
Probably.
See, I was going with the snooty coffee order.
There you go.
I'll have a Caffron, hold the cream.
Like DBZ is definitely the big one for me. As you can see, I plan on getting more tattoos with Dragon Ball Z characters at some point. Eventually run out of space, but time will tell. But
he's gonna have it on his eyeball at some point. Just be like,
no,
I got it, guys.
I got two of the Dragon Balls.
That is a hard pass on that one, my friends.
Oof.
I'm just saying, you're running out of room. You got to put it somewhere.
I've got my hard limits on where I'm going to stop. So.
I can imagine a couple of those limits.
I would rather not imagine a couple of those limits, but I understand.
So I will say that I have seen a little bit of Dragon Ball Z. So that
You've
is
actually seen
my
more than half of Dragon Ball Z at this point, because you started into. I think we started into the Android saga with you, did we not?
Android saga.
I think you saw all the way through Frieza. Yep. Okay, so yeah, you've seen Saiyan and Frieza sagas, and we've at least started the Android saga. So I don't remember exactly how far into that one we got.
Yeah,
but you've seen.
I think I saw pretty much the episode where the creator of the androids was either just being met or just being defeated. I can't remember.
Okay, yeah. So you're probably about a little past the halfway point, I would say.
Okay, so it's not as long as I thought it was then.
And it's also the final series of just Dragon Ball Z proper, not counting Super and Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
That final season or story arc is over 100 episodes.
Okay,
and so like that final arc is a long arc, but like you're a good chunk through like the main body of that show.
Yeah. I will say, growing up, I did not have the patience for the shonen style where it's this long, drawn-out storyline. I liked... Well, we'll save that for later. But going back now in a binge-worthy age, where we're looking for shows that are bingeable,
the
shonen style really lends itself... It's kind of ahead of its time in that regard. Because now you can sit down and watch all of Seven Deadly Sins and like, oh, shoot, it's 2 days later.
Yeah, like... The Shonen series is definitely one that is more bingeable, because the stories, while still compelling and enjoyable, tend to not be as in-depth. And so you can watch it and binge through it and not really miss much. Whereas if you're trying to watch something that's a little bit more detailed, like Tokyo Ghoul, for example, that has a little bit more detail and it kind of dives into the lore of that universe, you can still binge that one, but there's still going to be some content that you may be like, hold up, I missed that. I need to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, when we were growing up watching Dragon Ball Z, that was when all the filler was there too. And so there was just like an episode of Goku charging up for 20 minutes. And then the next episode that you'd see like a few days later, randomly Goku's now taking a driving test. And it's like, hold up, wait, there's something missing here.
Which humorously, that concept of a filler episode actually lent itself to create a whole different genre.
It did, yeah.
Not always in a good way.
So that was definitely the difficult thing. And thankfully, when we had Dan sit down and watch Dragon Ball Z, we did Dragon Ball Z Kai. So I had all of that filler removed. There's still definitely parts that's like, ooh, this is a little rough. And granted, this is an old show. So especially in the older seasons, as good as it is and as much nostalgia as I have for it, there's definitely going to be moments even that I'm sitting there like, ooh, this is kind of hard to watch right now. And so it's cool seeing some of the current anime or current running anime that took inspiration from Dragon Ball Z. For example, One Piece. Yes, I'm one of the lunatics that sat through 800 plus episodes of One Piece.
Oh,
And
gosh.
there's one specific scene. So in Dragon Ball Z, they have a moment where they set the time machine on fire. And it's just saying like, okay, like we did our mission. We went back in time, solved everything. We don't need this anymore. And so they set the time machine on fire and they're like, okay, like this is kind of a closing mark to the chapter. We're done with this and we're moving on with our lives. And One Piece had a very similar moment in that, and it was actually a direct shout out to that moment from Dragon Ball Z. It was shot in the same way. The characters are standing the same way. They did the fire in the same design. Like it was a direct call out to this moment in Dragon Ball Z when they got to the point where their original ship was just beaten, battered, torn. It couldn't handle the trek anymore, and they were getting ready to go into a section of the ocean that was even more treacherous and rough seas than where they had already been. So it's kind of that moment of like, okay, like this ship has been good to us. It was our home. This is where our family started, but it's time that we move on to that next chapter in our life. And they did that exact call out to the Dragon Ball Z moment with the time machine. The characters again standing the same way, looking at it, the fire, and everything. And that was like something that really stood out to me when I was watching One Piece. And even the creator of One Piece said this, like, no, this is a direct call out to that, because that heavily inspired me, and that's why I am still going today.
Nice. Yep. Was that the capsule core ship?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I wanted to make sure I remembered that. Figured that was a big one.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. Awesome.
It was like even shows like Naruto just like may not be direct call outs, but it's just doing like similar color palettes for some of the characters. Like, okay, like they're not directly like this character, but we really like that character. So.
Yeah. It's almost fun. It's not quite like Caleb was saying, it's not quite a copy paste whenever anime is taking inspiration for something. It's their own unique spin on something that already exists.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, wasn't Naruto very similar to Goku? Or at least in look?
It not so much in look or fighting style, because it was
Color
a very
palette,
different
yeah.
style. Like Goku was a martial artist, whereas Naruto is got that more ninja style. And like there is some martial arts there, obviously, but it's very much a different fighting style. But just with his character and like that resilience and that like I'm never gonna give up. I fight for my friends. My friends are my drive. Which, granted, that's anime, but
Yeah.
that was definitely something that kind of had that back and forth inspiration.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so like well, you're saying there's a difference in the fighting styles, but what were the differences in those two in general? Like what kind of separated those two?
As far as like the fighting styles, story?
As far as storyline.
Okay. So Dragon Ball Z is just like basically a group of martial artists fighting, and it started in Dragon Ball with them fighting in tournaments and kind of like little storylines where they would branch off, and it's like, oh, like the Red Ribbon Army is trying to like took over this country. We need to stop them because they're evil, and then back to the tournaments and kind of back and forth with that. And so it was started off very heavily on that tournament style, and it grew into what it is now, where it's like going to other planets and fighting these world-ending beings and abilities. It's like even the weakest of characters, that Yamcha that dies at like just a breath could still technically destroy a planet. So
yeah,
but Naruto was more focused around that like ninja lifestyle and just saying like what was their specific ninja creed for each of the characters. Like Naruto, his ninja creed was always wanting to like protect his friends, fight for those he loved, and become the Hokage, which is basically like the president of that village, if you will.
Okay.
And so like he was always like focusing on his ninja creed, and he said multiple times throughout the series, "That's my ninja way." Whereas Dragon Ball Z is just Goku's just like, "Oh, you're strong? Cool. Let's punch each other. Let's do this."
Yeah, Goku's drive was very much, I want to show that I am the strongest person out here.
Yes.
Right.
Not in a wish a sucker would mentality sort of way, but more of a I've got something to prove.
Yeah. Which is where that rivalry between him and Vegeta comes from, because Vegeta had like never really been bested, especially not by another Saiyan.
Yeah.
And so when he and Goku fought, and there was that like back and forth, it's like, oh, this is a Saiyan that beat me. And it was not an easy fight for Goku. It was a very close fight. So,
And not only that, but he wasn't even a full Saiyan because he had lost his tail, right?
Right.
So it was like, wow.
which
like
technically,
part of his...
like Saiyans can always regrow their tails because like there was treatments that they could do to like regrow the tail, and like at that point, if I'm remembering correctly from Dragon Ball, they had done something to make it to where Goku's tail wouldn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the whole premise, is like, okay, no, like when he turns ape, it's a problem. No one here can really do much to stop him, so we need to cut off the tail and make sure it doesn't come back so that we don't have any further problems.
Now how you solve that? You hand him a Kakarot.
I also just want to point out the idea of them blowing up the moon to stop someone from turning into an ape. Okay, you'd mess up so many things.
Oh, yeah. your planet would be destroyed.
Yeah. And now all I
goodbye
can
tides.
think of is, and now all I can think of is Assassination Classroom.
Fantastic anime. And
Yes, it is.
That's another one of my personal favorites, but it's a little bit later in the timeline.
Yeah,
But
just a
that's
bit.
definitely a fantastic one.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that the English voice actor of Krillin is the voice actor of Sensei.
Yeah. Which even in the localizations, there's still kind of that style of in joking with the fans, where it's like where you'll have a completely different character voiced by the same actor, and then they'll make the actor themselves will do some sort of line or tweak part of the localized lines as a callback to, hey, remember me? I was
Yeah.
Right.
Or they'll even like directly reference other anime within anime. Like there's so many.
Oh, yeah, it's
anime
great.
That's like you have a character that is a big manga fan, and they like talk about, like, I was just watching one recently. It was Jujutsu Kaisen, and that's a very new one that just started airing in like late 2019, early 2020.
Yeah.
So very, very new. And he was sitting there, was like, oh, like when do I get superpowers? When do I do like a Rasengan? When do I do a spirit bang? And like all just starts referencing all these other attacks from other anime, or even in Assassination Classroom, where it's just like one of the students was a big anime fan, and so the sensei, when working with him, would like put on anime garb to kind of help him focus and be like, no, like I can use anime to teach you something, so focus and just do what I'm telling you to do. So
Right.
it was just like he had the Naruto headband on him as he's like sitting there light speed around the room helping all of the students simultaneously.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and shoot, what was the? Sorry, I wish I could say it was the barking that killed my concentration, but no, it's just me.
Again, sorry for the dog.
They are adorable. So
Yes, they are. It's worth it.
absolutely.
No, but, yeah, no, that train is so far derailed. There are no survivors.
I'm curious, Dan, from your perspective, since you didn't really grow up with anime, you don't watch much anime. You've watched a little bit with me, and like Dan and David and I have convinced you to watch a few episodes of My Hero Academia here and there. So is there anything about anime that interests you? Is it just something you're not really interested in to speak of? No exposure? Like,
I think it was more so just the not so much exposure to it. When I was a kid, I mean, I wasn't even allowed to watch like Pokemon and stuff like that. A little side story. I was for Christmas one year, one of my uncles got me Pokemon
Cards?
No, the Pikachu. Sorry, Pikachu clock, and my mom made me give it back. Yeah, so that's kind of my exposure to anime and that style of things. So yeah, and it was really more of, even when I did start watching it with you guys, it was really kind of a social thing.
mm-hmm.
Like I wanted to get interested in what my friends were getting interested in.
Fair.
So I will say though, I am very much interested in My Hero Academia because I'm a big superhero fan. So I would love to get into that one.
Especially with the callbacks that they do on some of those characters to Western comics. I
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
with how much you love Western comics, I do think that My Hero would definitely be up your alley. And I definitely understand, like, just not growing up with it, getting into it later in life is definitely
Very,
tricky
very different.
because your opinion and your perspective on things is very different.
Yeah.
When I was with my previous roommate, Justin, that was basically a condition. I just walked into his room, dropped the DVDs of Dragon Ball Z on his desk, was like, get started.
Nice.
And he did start watching anime after that, and he like finished all of DBZ, and there's a few other shows that he and I watched together, and I got him recommending and stuff. So
Yeah.
like it worked out there, but he was also a few years younger than we are currently. So
Yeah. It's a bit easier when you have that vested interest in getting to know someone and getting to know what they're interested in. And then once you start watching it, you can kind of get the vested interest in the show itself.
Right.
I will say we probably didn't do you any favors when we watched Dragon Ball Z, because the group of us just sat there quoting Abridged the entire time. And so if anything, we got you interested in Abridged, but probably didn't help you get interested in the actual show.
I do love DBZ Abridged. It was pretty
That is
great.
something else that's like another callback to just the things that inspired by anime, because that's just Dragon Ball Z fans that said, we want to make a spoof of Dragon Ball Z and just be dorks.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And
then
it was really popular.
Yeah, and then it became a thing.
Very much a thing.
There's so many different Abridged shows on YouTube, not even just by that group. Like they've got a few different ones, but in looking at other random channels, it's just like, we're just fans of anime. Let's do something weird.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that's another thing about anime, though, is, I mean, the wide appeal. Part of it's that nostalgia, but another wide part of it is just how well anime translates different concepts into itself as a medium.
Mm-hmm.
You can hit on very hard topics through that medium, and it's something that we're starting to realize now in a lot of more Western pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
But to include the fact that a lot of anime has a very wide breadth of audience, and some of it is far more adult. Too far adult, and others are very kid focused, but they're not pulling punches. It's pointing out like, okay, yes, Ash Ketchum just won this big battle, and he's going up with his all-star team, and he lost. Why did he lose? Because hard fact, that person, they've trained harder. They've trained longer. It's going to happen.
Well, that's what I think. That's something that really sticks out to me with anime is their ability to touch on some really sensitive and difficult topics, and do so in some ways that they like definitely take it too far with like the joking, and it's just like not taking it seriously. But there's also the ones that do take it serious and note that like this is a genuine issue that happens in real life.
Yeah.
And it's just like I remember watching one a while back that like really like the main character dealt with domestic abuse growing up. And so like having to deal with that and like seeing how they kind of like the type of person they became after that and just their interaction with people because of what they went through is like, that's not something you really see outside in other content, because people are scared of that. Like, okay, we don't want to offend someone. We don't want to do something that's such a sensitive topic because we don't know how people are going to react to it. Whereas anime is just like, no, this is something that happens in real life. We need to discuss it.
Yeah.
And there's we can use this as part of our story, do it in a tasteful, tactful way, but still say like, hey, this is something that happens in our
world. That's awesome.
Yeah, and those same moral messages are coming through not only in more kid focused, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was one of the characters in My Hero, wasn't it? Yeah. But there's also some of the topics, and again, the slightly more, I hesitate to say adult, but because that has different connotations. But
mature.
There you go. The more mature stories, Ghost in the Shell would be the standout one to me. Part of that is due to just the genre it is, where it's cyberpunk. The whole idea is, hey, we're completely interchangeable now, so haha. And now you have characters wrestling with topics of identity and topics of like, well, hang on, I need to know who I am. Was I implanted as just these thoughts in this mechanical brain, or was I someone before that surgery, before that accident?
Or the people that are like in that same vein, the people that were against those cybernetic implants and either went through a really bad injury or car crash or whatever, and had to get implants to survive, and then them struggling with the fact that it's like, am I still human? Am I more human than robot? Am I more robot than human? Like, how do I proceed with my life? How do I process what I am now? What am I to people now?
Yeah. And this may be going a little too far on that, but I mean, since we're talking about influences, Ghost in the Shell was one of the main driving influences for kind of a cultural zeitgeist for us here in the States of The Matrix. The Matrix probably never would have happened had it not been for shows like Ghost in the Shell, specifically the first movie. where it's had a very long history of effect.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something new to me. That's I didn't know that about the Matrix.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not have specifically come from that, but it at least had an influence, right?
Very, very strong influence.
Yeah.
Where I think the Wachowskis were pretty forward. Like, no, we came up with this idea while watching it.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So yeah,
There's been a few different examples of that. I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, like that being that really prime example. But yeah, I mean, that's
Matrix
pretty
was pretty popular.
just a
it's
bit.
coming
Yeah.
back for another movie now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That could just be from lack of ideas, but
Oh, that's definitely a considered factor there. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm still very much looking forward to it. But
Yes.
that's another topic.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But
So question for both of you, one at a time kind of thing. What was your favorite anime growing up?
I think for me, it's pretty obvious with the tattoos. It was definitely Dragon Ball Z.
Good point.
Dragon Ball Z, and honestly, it was probably a tie between DBZ and Pokemon.
Okay.
Because I still, to this day, play the Pokemon games. I loved the Pokemon cards growing up. Like, I absolutely am down to get Pokemon tattoo added to the various myriad of anime tattoos I have.
And Caleb, you're also on Pokemon Go constantly, so
I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't sound like me at all.
thanks, bud.
It's
David, I see you on there too.
It's definitely running on my phone as we speak. Just saying.
That's all right. If they had a Marvel version of that, I would be playing it. So don't even worry about it.
Yeah, like DBZ and Pokemon, definitely the big things. I did grow up watching like Zoids, as I mentioned earlier, Gundam, as I mentioned, Yu-Gi-Oh was another classic one that I grew up with. But DBZ was the one that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
I still go back and watch through that from time to time now. And like, again, the tattoos, the video games, like reading through the manga now. And like, I've got all of the movies and seasons on Blu-ray. Like, I love Dragon Ball Z.
What about you, David?
So Saturday mornings we watched some, but not much. And so I would catch the occasional episode of Pokemon here and there. But what really drew me in was actually Digimon. Which was kind of wasn't kind of nothing. It was flat out a clone.
Yeah.
It was a fun clone, but yeah,
That one, like, it's interesting to me because Digimon is one of those that like it's more popular than you realize, but still not as popular as I feel like it should be.
I don't know. I mean,
Because they've still got Digimon movies coming out, and like there's people.
Do
that
they?
oh yeah. Like
My
Digimon
gosh.
is still very much a common thing in today's day and age.
kind of makes
And,
me
like,
happy.
They recently put up a bunch of the like Digimon movies and stuff on one of the streaming services. They've got another one that they're wanting to do. Like Digimon is far more popular than you realize. Actually,
I'm kind of glad for that.
yeah.
So the funny,
I gave my old roommates a hard time because he loved both Pokemon and Digimon, but he didn't really have one that kind of stood out to him.
You call him a
And
fence
when
sitter?
Pokemon introduced Mega Evolution, I was like, oh, hey, it Digivolved. The look on his face, he was like, no, they are not the same thing. I was like, technically they are, because it's a temporary transformation for the battle, and it goes back, it reverts back to normal after the battle's over. He goes, do not speak that black magic around me.
That's awesome.
So you want to know what's funny is when I heard of Digimon, for some reason I always got it mixed up with that off-brand Tamagotchi. do you guys remember that one?
Yeah.
What was it called? I can't even remember what it was now, but it was an off-brand Tamagotchi.
There was a Digimon Tamagotchi type toy.
Okay.
The one that looked like just a brick wall with a
Yeah.
screen in it.
Okay.
So that actually was part of the same series.
Okay. All right. So I wasn't wrong.
No. Yeah. There were other off-brand versions of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? Scanners, right?
Scanners.
With a Z, because, 90s and mid-aughts.
There's another show that was going on when we were younger that was kind of took inspiration from Digimon was Metabots.
Okay.
They were all like the
yeah.
insect type
Yeah.
robots, and it was a really entertaining show. Like they transformed and powered up for various fights and stuff. That one was like, I feel like with the rise of Pokemon and Digimon at the time, it was just like kind of playing catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, for Dan, that was kind of the start, but it really didn't pick up on me until, I don't know, 13, 14. Got into some of the other shows, a little bit more into Dragon Ball Z at the time. But still, again, as stated earlier, it's kind of that, okay, how long is this one going? But got into shows like Outlaw Star, Trigun, oh shoot, company that shall not be named, tried to make an adaptation that flopped miserably.
So, Bebop?
Yes, Cowboy Bebop. Oh, great show. Whereas I don't know, I hesitate to pinpoint any one reason why I got into that. For a few reasons, just that time of life, but also the opening theme. Yeah, Tank by the Seatbelts. Oh, great bass line. It was right as I was starting to learn how to play bass.
I think the theme was a big thing for a couple different anime from that time, because that, like, the original Way of the Dragon intro for Dragon Ball Z with the guitar riffs and like the rock theme, I was just like, oh, this is cool. This is different. I like this.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that was pointed out to me as we were watching those episodes.
We pulled up the original theme song for you, and it was just like, no, check this out. Like, this one is good, but no, listen to the original.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, the music was always a big deal with that. Yeah, it's been a weird. Yeah, my path into anime has been considerably different than yours.
Well, mine, like, I watched those handful of shows growing up, and then I really, outside of that, I didn't watch much anime until after I moved out. It was like a girl I dated in my junior and senior year of high school started to get me back into anime a little bit, but I didn't really fully get into it until after I moved out, at which point I could just sit down and watch whatever I wanted to and not have to worry about it. And that was when I just went through all of the Netflix anime. I found like Fate Stay Night and so many other good series. I watched Berserk a little bit later, and I think it's
a hard story though.
Well, it was overhyped for me.
Okay,
I had someone that hyped it up, and it was like his personal favorite, and so by the time that I sat down to watch it, I had listened to him for like months at this point, hyping the show up or these movies up. And so when I sat down and watched them, I was just like, okay, like, I get these are entertaining, but like, what was his love for this?
Yeah, that's a harder story to get into for sure.
Speaking of which, I have another question of, like, if you guys were to recommend an anime besides My Hero Academia, because that is one I'm like I said, I'm still kind of interested in trying to watch. But for someone who doesn't necessarily have much interest in it, but kind of still wants to do it to, have something to say when we're talking about anime.
Then how would we have this episode?
Right, exactly.
Well, we never said that the noob couldn't get into it after
this is true. This is very, very true.
Yeah, no, this
very
is
true.
This is literally kind of that.
Kind of the premise.
Like, this is something for someone who doesn't know something about these particular things or didn't previously have an interest in, can get excited about it because the other people have that interest and can share it with someone. And,
it's interesting because anime, it very much depends on a person's taste. And knowing like your love of superheroes, sadly, there's not as many related around just straight up superheroes as you might think, actually.
Yeah.
They tend to be more along the lines of, like, especially specifically with the shonen style that I tend to prefer, it's more around that martial arts stuff.
Which I love martial arts as well. So like,
I mean, the one that I would always recommend to anyone, especially if they're getting started, is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, that is the most popular series in the world for a reason.
Yes.
Like, there's a reason why those fans will go on, and if they see something even like by 1 point go above Fullmetal Alchemist on the anime rating, they just start spamming away. It's like, no, you will not surpass this.
Like,
that is far and beyond the most popular series, I would say. Okay. Like, even taking Dragon Ball Z into consideration, I feel like Dragon Ball Z was the starting point, but Fullmetal is probably that big ticket.
Yeah.
So
intermediary kind of like this is beginning with this
it's
is
like it's
what you
good
want to
too
get
because it's one of those anime that doesn't go overboard with a lot of the fan service that some other anime does, but it's also got such a good, compelling story, and it does such a great job with that character development that if you enjoy good storytelling, you're gonna enjoy it most likely, even if you don't necessarily care for that animated style. That one and like
the pacing on Fullmetal Alchemist, specifically Brotherhood, is really good.
Yeah.
Namely in the fact that they really balance out those moments like, okay, we just had this major plot point happen. That sucked. All right, hey, here's some lighthearted filler.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's another one that does a pretty good job of like kind of touching on some more sensitive topics.
Yeah.
But like doing it in a way that's like, okay, this is educational. We're kind of teaching you like, hey, this is kind of life. This is something that happens. But here's a stupid joke now to just lighten the mood.
Yeah. Nice.
So the comic relief in that one is awesome. If you want something that's a little bit more lighthearted in general, I would actually recommend Soul Eater.
Soul Eater is fantastic. That is another one of my personal favorite ones. I will say that like be prepared for they don't cross the line with the fan service, but that's definitely one that just like, oh, here's the line. I'm a poke it.
They make fun of the idea of fan service with exception of one character, and that one character is like you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. But that was another one that has such good character design and storytelling. And it's like, it's such a unique thing. It's like, it's a high school of students that are hunting down effectively what are demons and killing them for the Grim Reaper, who is the principal of the school.
Yes. And as odd and as serious as that concept sounds, they do so in a way that is absolutely whimsical.
Yeah.
And that's like with the art style and the color palette and just the way that the characters interact with each other. Like you go into that thinking that sounds kind of dark, and then you're like, that's the color palette they chose? What?
Yeah.
Nice. And something that's cool about that one too is like there's the Meister who is like the warrior, and then there's the weapon, and they're like both characters, but there's people that are able to transform into weapons in this universe. And so they have a Meister who they like synchronize with physically and spiritually, whatever. And it's like, okay, this person is able to wield me because we're on the same wavelength.
Okay.
And so like, and they can transform into different weapons. There's like one guy that turns into a scythe. There's these twin girls that turn into pistols for one character. There's a ninja chick that is able to transform
they're not
into
symmetrical.
all kinds. They're not symmetrical. There's a ninja chick that can basically transform into any ninja weapon, and so like he's a ninja fighting style, and like just is like, okay, go into shuriken mode, go into knife mode, go into kunai mode, go into smoke bomb, whatever.
Oh wow.
And so it's like, it's really unique, and like you said, it's like a fairly dark story when you think about it, but it's done in such a whimsical, goofy way that's like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah. Cool.
Another one that I would recommend
real quick, I was gonna say, kind of going back a little bit to what you said about the fan service. If you guys know me at all, you know that I like fan service.
I don't think you're ready for anime style fan service.
Anime fan service is like a very different concept. So it's like, you may say that, but then as soon as you start watching, it's just like, oh, this was not what I expected.
So give me one example of fan service.
I will not give an example, but I will give a description.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with the rules of the internet?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. One in particular that probably can come to mind for quite a few people listening.
Basically, like, there's some anime that like it's just ridiculous proportions, for lack of a better way to word it. And it's like, if it can move, it's going to move for no reason whatsoever.
Yep. Okay.
And random things where it's just like clothing getting blown off just because. Because, like, there's no real reason.
Just because we know the character, the fans tend to
okay, so like
have their own opinions of those characters.
Yes.
Okay, so like just in my own reference, like a particular actor who's known for taking their shirt off, like Taylor Lautner or something like that. He'll Abduction. Did you ever see Abduction?
It's like that,
okay,
yes,
right.
but it's like, with female characters, just.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But it's basically that whole thing of like, okay, you like this person is known for taking their shirt off, so in every movie he's gonna take his shirt off.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Okay. Where like it's practically a clause in their contract. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some anime that
Good to know.
really try to like push that boundary and see how far they can get away with it without like falling into other categories.
Yeah.
High School of the Dead.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, like that's where
Bleep that title out, please.
That's where we say fan service is like it's just like nudity without any purpose behind it, just nudity for nudity's sake, basically.
You know, like an HBO show.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or The Witcher.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like that's where we like that's where I say like careful with the fan service.
Yeah.
And that's why I recommend a lot of the shows that I do recommend, because it's like, well, some of them may kind of get close to that line, like the character from Soul Eater. The ones that I'm gonna typically recommend to most people aren't gonna cross that line.
Right. Which is good.
Yeah, shows I would recommend are similar in vein, but my draw is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the fun, lighthearted stories. My draw is more on, okay, how are you tackling this topic?
Yeah.
What are the writers trying to encourage us to think about?
Yeah. Another good one to start off with, if you like more of like a semi-historical take, is the Fate Stay Night series that we were talking about. And it's taking various historical characters and putting them into like this fighting tournament. And so, and it's like, it does like its own kind of unique twist on some of the characters. Like Gilgamesh is one of the characters. And then there's another one that's like their very different version of King Arthur, who is actually a woman that was pretending to be a man in Camelot and like trying to fight and save Camelot. So,
Medieval Mulan.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
So it's like it takes a lot of those historical characters and brings them to modern time and says, okay, cool, you're a servant for this master. Go have fun. You're fighting in a tournament. Hope you survive.
Yeah. Goodness. Which show did you say that was?
That one, there's Fate Zero is kind of like the prequel series, though it came out a little bit later. And then there's Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a mouthful of a title, but very good show. And that one is like technically timeline-wise comes after Fate Zero, but I think that one's a little easier to get into because they explain some of the stuff. And then Fate Zero is like, okay, we're just assuming that you've watched the other Fate series and you already know what's happening.
Yeah, you know the characters and you know kind of what's going on in the world. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool.
You have any other questions? Like we talked on quite a few anime spin-offs there. So
yeah, no, I think that's really a good starter for people who don't know much about anime. I mean, I think there was some moments where we kind of glazed over some information, but other than that, I think
that's kind of tricky because I don't want to like. Especially if there's someone that's wanting to get into anime and like they happen to take any of my goofy recommendations, trying not to spoil too much.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think it's more like just knowing who characters certain are or whatever. But yeah, that's no big deal. It's kind of just what we're here for. So
yep. And actually, as far as recommendations to you personally, Dan, Trigun. Hands down, I think you would thoroughly enjoy Trigun. I think it's only 23, 24 episodes,
something like
that.
Yeah,
it's a shorter. It was a 1-season show.
Yeah.
I'll
have to write some of these down later. So
yeah, it's kind of the stepping stone between Fullmetal Alchemist and Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say like knowing your taste and your style, My Hero is probably a good starting point for you.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely got the lightheartedness, it's got the seriousness, it's got good character development and storytelling. It is a bit of a longer show, but it is, again, knowing your preference with superheroes and stuff like that, I do think that was probably a good starting point for you.
Agreed.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this conversation up. Thank you guys for schooling me in anime.
And thank you, Caleb, for calling on my BS.
So, we will call it a episode 3 of 2 Geeks and 1 Noob. Yay. So hopefully whoever gets to listen to this enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Job's done.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.